Well, you know what that music means, that hard rockin' Madison Rising music. It means it's time for another episode of Student of the Gun Radio, and thank you very much for joining us again today. And obviously across the, well, not obvious, but across the table from me, across the board on the other side there is Jared. Jared, how are we doing this week?
I'm doing great this week. You want to know what I did this morning?
Tell me what you did.
I got up early, like sunrise early, and I drove about half an hour to do some yard work.
Congratulations. Good job. Good job. So in addition to all the other stuff he actually does, you do physical work too?
Sometimes.
Sometimes you do physical work?
It's not all mental, just sometimes.
Well, we have a lot of material to cover. It seems like every week there's so much. There's almost more material than we can cover in 2 segments, but we're going to do our very best to talk about all the important stuff gun-related. And if this is your very first time listening to Student of the Gun Radio, welcome. We're glad that you're here. But know this, understand this. It's going to take you more than one segment or more than one episode of Student of the Gun Radio to get it, to understand it, to realize what it's all about. You're going to have to give us a few shows before you make your judgment or pass judgment, because we're not here to talk about hammers or necessarily gadgets. And you're like, hammers? What do you mean, Paul? Well, when we talk about firearms and use of firearms and how and why we would use them, there are a lot of magazines and shows, TV shows, radio shows, what have you, that are gear focused. They're about what's the newest, coolest, whatever. And we talk about hammers. You know, that you could listen to a show that's all about hammers and the shiny new hammer, the 5-pound hammer, the claw hammer, what have you. But a lot of the hammer shows don't talk about carpentry. Well, there's really no purpose in talking about hammers if you're not going to talk about carpentry. And there's no purpose in talking about what the newest, coolest, shiniest gun is if you're not going to talk about how it is used, how it's employed properly, effectively, and efficiently. And that's something that we do right here on Student of the Gun Radio. We're not just going to talk about hammers. We're going to talk about carpentry. We're not just going to talk about guns. We're going to talk about how, why, and when to use them.
Stop. It's hammer time.
Is it hammer time? All right. So
or unhammer time.
It's unhammer time. So with that said, we want to make sure that whether you're new or old or you've been with us from the very, very beginning, that we acknowledge our good sponsors, because radio programs like this don't get put together for nothing. We got microphones and overhead, and that kid across the table from me, he wants to make some money once in a while. But we got some good friends over at Crossbreed Holsters in Republic, Missouri. If you want to wear probably the most comfortable in the waistband holster that is available today, check them out. Check out crossbreedholsters.com. And for some of the most innovative firearms being manufactured in the United States today, you go a little bit south of the border there, south of the Mississippi border, down into Cocoa, Florida, and check out our friends at Keltec Weapons. And it's easy. It's keltecweapons.com. So check out all the new and cool stuff that they've got going for you. And don't forget about our good buddies at the Firearms Radio Network. We got a lot of friends on Firearms Radio Network that host the other shows. So just go to firearmsradio.tv and you can check out our other buddies, like the guys at Gun Guy Radio, Gun Girl Radio, Talking Lead, and AR-15 Podcast. Just check those guys out if you have a chance. Now, if you checked out the show notes, or you look at the title of the show, you'll see that the title of this particular segment is Anti-Gunners Fail. And that should make everybody happy and bring a smile to your face, because last week, or this was a good week for us as pro-gun, and not just pro-gun. You know, I've said this before, but I'll mention it again. I'm not just, people say, well, are you pro-Second Amendment? I was like, well, yeah, but I'm kind of pro that entire Bill of Rights. I'm kind of pro that entire United States Constitution thing, not just the Second Amendment, but I believe in the First and the Fourth and the Third and all that good stuff. And this was a good week for pro-Constitution, patriot-type people, and we're going to talk about it this week. But before we get into that, as you know, we always do a Student of the Week. That's something that we do to address questions very specifically. And, you know, when we go through the pile, and you guys are doing fantastic, are they not, Jared? Jared,
They're doing fantastic.
they're doing a great job. You guys out there in the listening audience are doing a fantastic job posting questions, and it's real easy if you want to get our attention. If you want to put a question up, just go to Student of the Gun on Facebook or at Student of the Gun on Twitter, and you put that little pound sign or the number sign or the hashtag and put the word Student of the Gun in there, and then ask your question. And if we pick your question, you'll win an official Student of the Gun T-shirt. Now, last week, the winner last week, we asked them if they wanted a T-shirt or a book, and they actually said that they would rather have the autograph book. So I think we sent them an autographed copy of the book Student of the Gun. But Jared is going to go ahead and tell us who our Student of the Week is this week and what is their inquiry.
Our Student of the Week is Stephen Lesniak, and Stephen pays attention to Student of the Gun. He says, the importance of having a defensive weapon between an empty hand and a gun was pointed out in a previous podcast. I see advertisements for tactical pins. Is there a credence to their name and use as a defensive weapon? If so, do you have a suggestion?
Yes, it's kind of funny. I believe that Jared and I were privy to what essentially was the first ever tactical pen about 7 years ago, I guess it was now. Yeah,
up in Ohio.
Yeah, about 2006, I guess it was, between 2005 and 2006. I've got a good friend. His name's Rick Hinderer, and if you're a knife person in addition to a gun person, you know the name Rick Hinderer. Rick Hinderer has collaborated with a lot of the major manufacturers. He's worked with K-Bar. Is that correct, Jared? K-Bar?
Yeah, K-Bar.
K-Bar and
John Benner.
And Gerber.
And Gerber.
And Gerber, that's right. And he's worked with a lot of knife companies. He's a custom knife maker. And about, like we said, 6-7 plus years ago, being a machinist, having a machine shop, he decided he was going to take titanium and he was going to make it into the shape of a pen, put the really cool Fisher Space Pen right upside down, right on anything, refills in them, and he made it modular, all kinds of different, end caps and you name it. And he called it a tactical pen, and he started advertising them, started selling them. And as you guys probably understand, titanium is not cheap. But anyway, they became very, very popular. As a matter of fact, they became so popular that Rick couldn't keep up. He had more orders than he could actually make, and they started making aluminum versions. And what was funny is not everybody, but a lot of people laughed at him at first. They're like, "Oh, no one's ever going to buy that. No one's ever going to pay $259 for a custom-made tactical pen." Wrong. Not only did people pay that, but everybody else in the knife world decided to add to their catalog lines by introducing these tactical pens. Now, a lot of you guys out there might be poo-pooing the idea. You're like, tactical pen, whatever. Well, essentially, if you think about it, where do you work? Where do you go every single day? How many of you go into what we'll call non-permissive environments where you cannot, by regulation or law or edict or, whatever, you can't carry any type of defensive tool or, forget firearms. A lot of these office buildings or these businesses, they've listened to their attorneys, and their attorneys have told them, here's the blanket, you're not allowed to have anything statement, and this is what's going to keep our employees safe, just like those ridiculous plastic signs. But they come up with these policies that say you're forbidden any type of weapon, right? So you can't even have a pocket knife or you're in violation of your company's policy. And that makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy until some bad person, unfriendly person, criminal person decides they really don't care what the policy is. They're going to break your nose. They're going to rob you. They're going to rape you. They're going to do whatever they want to do because guess what? Criminals aren't bothered by corporate policies. So if you have to go in and out of a non-permissive environment every day, what can you legitimately have on your body as a tool, as something to bridge the gap between having empty hands and, we say empty hands and a gun, but it might be empty hands and empty hands. If you work in a professional office building where you're forbidden, you're in a situation where If you're going to and from the car, it doesn't matter. You don't even have to be going to and from the car. Some deranged nut job could just walk in and decide, hey, it's not about you necessarily. It's just about being in the wrong area. Well, a pen is something that you'll carry with you. Now, a lot of you old martial art type people know about the coup baton or the mini batons or the keychain batons or what have you. And I've known people that have had those, but the problem with the mini baton is it serves no other purpose. It is, I mean, even a novice, even a first day on the job TSA employee knows that a coup baton is a weapon and they're forbidden. You cannot take a coup baton, even though it's just a little tiny plastic stick. You can't take that on an airplane. It's forbidden. Guess what you can take on airplanes? Pens. Because why? Because it's a pen, right? It has some other purpose other than hitting people with. And because it has another purpose besides hitting people with, you can, and most of the time you will actually carry it with you because you can use it on a regular basis. It's not one of those things that's just hanging off of your keychain that you forget about after a month or two. Now, the use of a pen or any type of a short stick object, and in personal defense, you can't just buy something and purchasing gear doesn't give you the innate ability to use it. You're going to have to learn how to use it. You're going to have to practice with it. But yeah, we recommend the tactical pen. Now I can't even imagine how many there are available now. I know Smith & Wesson makes them. CRKT makes them. Rick Hinder, Custom Knives make them. Who else, Jared? Everybody. You just
tell them your Ichi story.
Oh, no, I don't think I want to tell the Ichi story.
You don't want to tell the Ichi story?
No, I'm not going to. Well, my buddy Ichiro Nagata, who's a very famous photographer. He's a very famous gun photographer. If you're a gun person, you've seen his work at some point in time in print. He takes excellent, very artistic photos of firearms. But Ichi designed a pen, and I have one of his. It's a tactical pen, but it's also like a work of art. But if you're interested in something like that, there's several companies out there that do classes. We've actually done segments on the TV show. And Jared, it's probably time to do another one, huh? He nodded. He said yes with his head. He nodded up and down.
I'm over here trying to work. Sorry.
He's trying to work. But yeah, during segment 2, if you've been with Student of the Gun for a while, during season 2, we did a segment about tactical pens and how to use them. But the answer is yes, it is a good thing. Tactical pens are a good item if you know how to use them. And you don't have to spend $200-$300. I think Smith & Wesson has one that's an aluminum version, and you can get them for $20-$30. So check that out. Now, the next one we want to talk about, this next story is very near and dear to our heart, and we're kind of excited to bring this story to you. And if you're a fan of Student of the Gun Radio, we talked about this, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. And I'll set it up real quick for those of you who didn't hear the first story. In the state of Mississippi, the Constitution says that essentially it mirrors the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, but it said that the right of the people to keep and bear arms for defense of their persons, property, and in support of, local law enforcement or something like that. But anyway, shall not be infringed. But in the state constitution, it says that the state has the authority to regulate carrying of concealed weapons. Okay, fantastic.
Now, can you clarify this for our listeners? Does the state constitution supersede the U.S. Constitution or vice versa?
No, the U.S. Constitution supersedes the state constitution. But the state constitution is a little bit more specific than the U.S. Constitution. And I'm not going to get into constitutional law, but essentially every state in the union has their own individual constitution. And in Mississippi, it says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms for defense of their persons and property shall not be infringed, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. And so what Mississippi did many, many years ago is they instituted a shall issue concealed carry permit system. Not a big deal. Well, when they did it originally, and this happens a lot, when you get a bunch of politicians involved, and you get different people writing the bills and changing and amending the bills, and some weird, strange language or some strange verbiage got into the bill, and it says in the concealed carry permit law, it said concealed or partially concealed. And there was some confusion. There's been confusion for many years as to, well, what does that mean? If the person is wearing a gun in a holster and the holster conceals part of it, does that mean it's a concealed gun and they have to have a permit, or does that mean it's not concealed? What does that mean? And last year, or during this last year, the State House and the Senate, they went ahead and they readdressed this, and they said, look, we just need to clear up this bill. We need to take out this arbitrary language, because what happens, people get charged this or that. They refer back to the bill and are like, well, that's, all your attorneys, your prosecutors, and your defense attorneys arguing about, well, what does the law mean? So they cleaned it up. They just basically took out the arbitrary or the confusing verbiage. They ran it back through. They vote on it. They called it House Bill 2. And essentially what House Bill 2 does is it mirrors the Constitution. The Constitution of Mississippi says that you can keep and bear arms, yada, yada, personal defense, property defense, and so forth. However, the state, may regulate the carrying of a concealed gun. So they did that. No big deal. But when they cleared it up, when they got rid of the arbitrary verbiage, what that did by passing that law, by passing the new law, is it essentially affirmed the right of the citizen to carry a firearm on their person, not concealed. What does that mean? It means it affirms the right of the citizen to carry a gun in the open. Or, what do we know? What's everyone always talking about? What do gun people like to argue about? Gun people love to argue about open carry versus concealed carry and so forth. Well, what happened is they went ahead, they passed the bill. It's all set to go into effect, first of July, right, Jared? Yeah, it was 1st of July. All set to go into effect, no big deal. Voted on, the governor signs it, and this activist district attorney up around Jackson, Mississippi, this activist district attorney, files a motion, and he's got this activist judge in his pocket. He's got this liberal-leaning judge in his pocket, and so that he files this motion for an injunction against the application of the new law. Well, the law's the law is not really new. It's something that's basically, it just affirms what the Constitution already says. Well, this judge says that the law is too vague and arbitrary to be enforced, and he puts in an injunction against the law. And we were like, what?
The judge said, quote, "A reasonable person reading the bill could not discern what the law allows and what it prohibits," end quote. And my thing with that is that the lawmakers just did a once-over on that bill to clear up the verbiage. So obviously that was not the case.
Yeah, this is liberal activism. This is judges trying to legislate from the bench. And look out across the nation, and you'll see a lot of that going on, where judges decide that rather than interpreting the law, they're going to dictate the law.
I like how he threw a reasonable person in there. So that makes everybody that could discern what it meant an unreasonable person?
Apparently. Well, so this this left-leaning district attorney and this left-leaning judge, they decided they're going to throw a monkey wrench into the works, and they made the big political statement about it. People were just having kittens. Newspapers and television, channels. They're all these anti-gun, left-leaning Brady campaign people were just freaking out because all of a sudden Mississippi people were going to be allowed to carry guns. Well, that's obviously not the case. And every rational, reasonable person in the state understands that Mississippi people already carry guns. been carrying guns for a long, long time. It's not like they just passed a concealed carry bill. But anyway, they ginned up enough, outside interest. Yeah, I guess, I don't know if they got money from Bloomberg to do this or what. We should probably check their bank accounts and see if the nanny Bloomberg sent them a check to try and screw with us. But Phil Bryant, the governor, and Jim Hood, the attorney general, they're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to take it to the state Supreme Court. And they had, I think, 80 senators filed a Friends of the Court briefing saying, look, we need the Supreme Court to take a look at this and to issue a ruling. Well, just this last week, as you're hearing this last week, the Supreme Court of Mississippi said, throughout the judge's ruling, they said he erred. Essentially, he erred when he did that. He was wrong. That it is, so I guess in a nutshell, what we have down here in Mississippi is we have a state Supreme Court that actually knows how to read the Constitution. Kind of crazy, huh? And we have a governor, a lieutenant governor, and the attorney general all believe in the right of the people to keep and bear arms. So go team. And when the court ruled, they said that the bill is law and it goes into effect immediately.
I've heard a lot of arguments from friends and acquaintances, especially on Facebook, that are saying things like, yeah, but you have the yahoos and hillbillies that'll just carry a gun out in the open and not know what they're doing. And my thing with that is, sure, there will be some people like that, but would you rather take the time and effort to educate those people on how to do it correctly, how to open carry correctly or conceal carry correctly, for all I care? Or would you let the state court step on the constitutional rights? And once you set the precedent, they can if you take the Second Amendment away, then all of the rest will follow. So,
well, yeah, there's that. Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. It's like, and folks, do you think that, all right, if you're a gun person, if you're a pro Second Amendment person, if you believe in the right of the people to keep and bear arms, if you actually believe that genuinely, you have to ask yourself, is an open carry law good or bad for gun owners? When a governor of a state signs a bill affirming open carry, is that good or bad? I mean, is the governor doing that to try and please Bloomberg or Obama or Holder? Is he doing that to try and suck up to them? Or do you believe that it's affirming the rights of the people? And it's a slippery slope, ladies and gentlemen, when you go ahead and agree that the people can't be trusted. They can't be trusted to do the right thing. All you guys out there, guys are like, oh, open carry is a terrible idea because some knucklehead yahoo's going to be carrying a gun and they shouldn't. Do you think those people don't own guns already? All the people that you're disparaging? Are you afraid that they're going to become de facto criminals because of the new law? Does the new law allow people to become criminals? Well, no, obviously it doesn't. But when you try and go down that reasonableness road. Well, I'm going to say this because that'll make me sound like a reasonable person. I'm going to say I'm against open carry because that'll make me sound reasonable. What you're doing is you're essentially playing right directly into the hands of the anti-gun, anti-freedom, anti-liberty crowd. When you say there are people that can't be trusted to do the right thing, what are you saying? What you're saying is that someone needs to step in and make sure these people who can't be trusted, who are incompetent, someone needs to parent over them. And who is that someone? Where does it come down to? Well, it always comes down to Big Brother. It always comes down to, the government needs to step in and do something. And you cannot be pro-Second Amendment, pro-U.S. Constitution, consider yourself a patriot, and at the same time say that the citizen can't be trusted to make the right decisions, so we have to have the government come in and make the decisions for the citizen. Folks, freedom is not about perfection. Freedom is the freedom to fail. Freedom is the freedom to do it wrong. If you're looking for perfection, if you're looking for a zero tolerance game, there's only one way you can do that, and that's to have a complete and totalitarian state that dictates every move you make from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Is that what you're looking for? Yes or no? How did we survive as a nation for 200 plus years without Nanny Bloomberg telling us what sodas we were allowed to drink and what candy bars we were allowed to eat? How did we survive? How do we survive without California telling us that we can no longer use lead bullets? That's right. That's something that's going on right now. They're trying to ban lead ammunition. Riddle me this, Batman. Jared, you're a smart kid over there. Where does lead come from?
Doesn't that come out of the earth?
What? I thought lead came from the moon.
Maybe if you're a liberal.
So we don't want lead going. They're afraid that if we shoot bullets that have lead and that goes into the ground, that it's going to kill the animals. Where does the lead come from? Do we not dig it out of the earth?
Maybe those same people go to the grocery store where animals were not harmed.
That's true. That's true. Maybe they buy their meat from the grocery store because no animals were harmed. It's insanity. It is craziness. But when you set that up, when you put yourself in a position where you say the people can't be trusted, if you're willing to give up your freedom and your liberty, someone will step in and take that from you. So, but here in Mississippi, here in free America, we have a pro-Second Amendment, a pro-liberty governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, and that's a good thing. And we also have a Supreme Court that knows how to read the Constitution. So, yay team. Next story, let's talk about, this is kind of a follow-up. No, before we get to the next one, let's talk about the pro-gun rally, and we'll pull that up. This comes from our former home of Ohio. That's right. For a while there, we used to reside in the Buckeye State. And it turns out that in Columbus, unfortunately, Columbus has become this liberal mecca. And Ohio, which used to be a pretty, conservative state, is now divided pretty hard between the cities and the rural areas. You have Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton area that are hardcore left wing, and then you have your rural communities. And what's happened actually right after we left there is they kind of went insane, and they elected a Democrat governor and a Democrat Congress, and the Democrat governor and Democrat Congress in the middle of the 2000s set about just destroying the state. Unfortunately, what we saw in Ohio when we lived there was a lot of businesses were leaving Ohio and going south into the southern states, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, because of the oppressive business practices or the taxation that was going on up there. But we've got some good news out of Columbus. We had some do-gooder, hippie, liberal type people that decided they were going to organize a reasonableness rally, and was it sponsored by illegal mayors?
Illegal mayors. Mayors against illegal guns.
Yeah, what is that even? How is a gun an inanimate object? How is an inanimate object illegal? Isn't that up to the human being to decide whether they want to be lawful or not lawful? So they decided they were going to organize this reasonableness rally where it's only reasonable to have background checks for everyone. Well, let me tell you what, if you don't know it already, if you go into a gun store to buy a gun, you have to go through a background check. That's been in place forever. But what they want is they want you as a gun owner not to be able to transfer your lawfully owned property from one person to another. Well, what happened, and this is the the headline is awesome. This comes from 10 TV in Columbus. It says rally for gun background checks quickly becomes a pro-gun event. That's right. A lot of pro-liberty, pro-Second Amendment people turned out as a counter-protest to these knuckleheads, and outnumbered them. I don't know, maybe not 10-1, but a great deal. So they kind of turned the tables on Bloomberg and his ninnies there. Jared, what's your take on that?
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that the rally was set up to be a background check. It's for pro background check people, and I think it says in this article that only 6, it says half a dozen pro background check people showed up, and upwards of 50
plus, yeah,
50 plus pro gun people showed up. So that really says a lot.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, do not allow yourself to fall into that reasonableness trap. This whole this reasonableness background check deal, it's a trap. It's a trick. It is basically trying to divide and conquer us. What they're trying to, it's not about, keeping guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. Folks, let's be adults for 5 seconds. Adult people that have decided that they're going to be a criminal, that they're going to go against the law, are not hindered in one form or fashion by background checks. They will steal the guns. They will sell dope for the guns. We can't keep dope off of our streets. We cannot keep methamphetamines off of our streets, and cocaine and heroin and everything else. But you think one more law is going to rid the streets of illegal guns. Baloney. It doesn't work. It never has. But when you put stuff like this together, this new national background checks, first of all, we don't need any more nationalization. That's the last thing we need, is more nationalization. Tell me the last time the federal government did something good for you. And if you're saying, man, they sent me a check, I'm like, then you go listen to an NPR show. You stumbled onto the wrong show here. But we don't need more nationalization. We need more liberty from the state that you live in. That's how this nation was founded, with states' rights. We don't need people in Washington, D.C. dictating to the people in Columbus, Ohio, or Biloxi, Mississippi, or wherever you happen to reside right now. We don't need any more of that. And don't fall for this reasonableness. It's a trap. It's a trick. It's trying to get you to feel like if you don't support it, then you're somehow unreasonable. American gun owners have been reasonable enough. We have been reasonable for the last 60 to 70 years, and look what it's gotten us. Every, 20, 30 years, they come around with another bill, another law. This gun control law will make us safer. 1934, 1968, 1986, 1994, over and over and over again. And it's never enough. What did we talk about before? Gun control advocates, big government advocates, are never, ever, ever going to be satisfied. They're never going to be satisfied until you are completely and totally disarmed. And even then, they won't be satisfied. So don't fall for it. But hey, if you're up in Ohio, we've been kind of disappointed by what's been going on in Ohio lately. We've got some real lunacy going on up there. Columbus, I don't know what's in the water. They're doing, like magazine, capacity limits and all that craziness up there. But, hey, if you're in Ohio, if you're part of the Buckeye Firearms Association, go team, we're glad that it's working out for you. Now, this next story here is kind of a follow-up. We talked about our good friend up there in Seattle. We did a little bit of West Coast lunacy last week. And Jared, go ahead and set us up on the next story for the Seattle one.
It says, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough. Seattle stores feel backlash over anti-gun campaign.
That's right. Our anti-gun mayor, Mr.
No names.
Oh,
we don't care about his name.
Oh, well, I was just going to say I'm not. Yeah, she's up there getting. Is it he? She? What is it?
It's a he.
It's a he? All right, we don't know that. It's Seattle. And, when you're talking about the West Coast, is it wrong to refer to assign a gender role? Is it better just to say it?
What?
I don't want to offend anyone out on the West Coast by using, offensive gender roles.
Yeah, you're right. You should probably just do a neutral.
That's right. Word. That's the way the world should be. There should be no gender roles. So the mayor in Seattle, we'll we'll call it an it. Okay, it's getting money from Nanny Bloomberg. Nanny Bloomberg is giving it money for its reelection campaign. We had some people from Washington write us this week because we talked about it last week on the radio, and they said, yeah, that it's getting money from Nanny Bloomberg for its reelection campaign, so it has to go out and do the silliness. Well, it's been the mayor out there has been encouraging businesses to put up these ridiculous signs that your guns are not welcome here. Well, what Seattle people are saying is, okay, well, if my guns aren't welcome here, then neither is my money, and I'm going to go somewhere else. And one of the sub-stories, it says, where is it? It says, Grandma fights back. We love that one. It was a 65-year-old grandmother said that if they don't want me to come in there with my gun, then I'm not going to give them my money. That comes from gunsandfreedom.com. We got that one right there. Where I'm looking for the exact quote from Granny. But, yeah, it's they're pushing back. And congratulations to you guys up there in the occupied state of Washington. We last week we said about what is it about being close to the ocean that makes you insane or something. But, yeah, go team, another go team out for you guys out there. Apparently the people of Seattle are telling them, no, you know what? If our guns aren't welcome in there, then neither is our money. So if it says if you're going to be tough or going to be dumb, you have to be tough. And people are fighting back in Seattle, and we're glad to hear that. Now, remember, we talked about it last week, and we told you by the time you heard the show that we were going to go out and support Starbucks. And this is kind of a West Coast thing by extension anyway, because I believe their corporate headquarters is still in Seattle. Is it not, Jared?
I'm not sure. I can research that for you, though.
Okay, well, I believe headquarters for Starbucks is out west on the West Coast. And some of you guys actually, you missed the point. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a little bit of time. We're going to kind of reinforce the point for you. Now, last week, some Brady campaign backed moms for reasonable guns, or some ridiculous nonsense that they make up. I love the way that these anti-freedom, anti-liberty people throw the word mom in there so that you're not supposed to be against it. And you're like, oh, well, the cause has the word mom in it, so I can't say anything bad about them because then I don't love my mom if I don't support them. But it was like, the Brady campaign's moms against guns, or moms for reasonable guns, or whatever it was. They're going to skip Starbucks Saturday. That's what they're going to do. They're going to bully Starbucks into putting up those stupid signs. And it backfired on them. It wasn't just Student of the Gun Radio. It was everybody who has a radio show, I think, or a TV show, or a blog, or a Facebook page, or whatever, all across the nation. Gun owners, pro-Second Amendment, pro-liberty people went to Starbucks on purpose on Saturday, even if they don't normally go, And if you know coffee shops usually are really busy Monday through Friday because what? Everybody's stopping on their way to work to get coffee, and then the weekends it kind of tapers off. Well, both places we went to, we actually went to two different stores. We went to one in Gulfport and one in Biloxi. And we went in there and we told them, hey, we're here to support you. And neither one of them stores knew what was going on. They didn't even know that these moms against guns or the Brady campaign people, they didn't even know they were being protested.
Do you suppose the Brady campaign people are smart enough to know that their name would have got tossed around by doing that, creating that controversy, or do you think they're too dumb to know that?
I don't know, but you'd think that they would get a clue. They think they're so tough, but every time they organize or do one of these things, it backfires in their faces, and it turns out people, the company that's being targeted ends up making more money than they normally would have.
Do the baristas a solid real quick. Tell them what they're not. Tell our listeners what the baristas are not allowed to talk about while they're on the clock.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And this was somebody who was a woman who was a barista. And if for you guys who aren't, hip to coffee shop lingo. That's the little girl who makes your coffee behind the counter. That's a fancy name for the girl who puts your coffee together. Starbucks policy is that their people, their employees, are not allowed to discuss politics or personal feelings regarding politics while they are on the clock. So, guys, pro-Second Amendment dudes, pro-gun dudes, don't go into the Starbucks and start hammering the barista, the little girl who's making your coffee, about pro-Second Amendment and pro-this. Just let them make your coffee. Just say, hey, we're here to support you guys. And that's what we did. We said, look, we heard that there were some bullies that were trying to bully you, and we're not going to stand for it. And so that's why we're here today. And that's why we went to actually 2 separate stores, and I bought coffee for and little goodies for the whole crew. Go ahead.
You can check out the video that I made at studentofthegun.com/homeroom.
That's right. Go to studentofthegun.com/homeroom. It's just a real quick video. We were out there supporting Starbucks. And, some of the pro-gun people are like, oh, dude, you're screwing up because Starbucks is not a friend of ours. They're liberals. Their president is a liberal, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, dudes, calm down. I'm not saying that the CEO or the president of Starbucks is a pro-conservative person. I'm not saying that he is. What I'm saying is this, is when the anti-gun, anti-freedom crowd decides that they're going to target X business or Y business and bully them, let's face it, in today's world, it's a lot easier for these business owners just to cave. You get these ninnies, these crybabies. They go in there and they stomp their feet and they tell them, you need to do this. You need to put up a sign. You need to stop people, blah, 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 blah. And what is the normal reaction? Well, the normal reaction is people don't like conflict, so they just give in. And it would have been very easy for Starbucks to say, okay, we'll give in. We'll put up these signs. We'll put the no-gun signs up in our coffee shops. We'll make it a corporate policy. It would have been very easy for them to do that. But they didn't. And we need to applaud that, and we need to support it, because by supporting them, you're setting the example for other businesses. So when other businesses get bullied by these same ninnies, these Brady campaign type bullies, they need to know that you're going to back them up, because if you don't, then how easy is it for them to just say, okay, I'll put the sign up just so nobody, gets mad.
And why are we backing? Why do we have this position? We have it because gun control doesn't stop crime.
Right. Gun control doesn't stop crime. And that leads us right directly into our next story. And this is going to be the last one. And it's funny. If you're paying attention to Student of the Gun, if you're an intelligent person, you probably know this. You already know that gun control laws do nothing to actually stop, slow, or prevent crime.
This one kind of blew my mind where this study came from.
Yeah, this was a study commissioned, and it was from Harvard University. And it says, would banning firearms reduce murder and suicide rates, or what they call intentional deaths? And they studied it throughout continental Europe. And what they found essentially is the answer is no. The answer, what we've already known, but apparently Harvard had enough guts to say it, which amazes me. I would have thought they would have buried this and just kind of hidden the results. But the Harvard study says that no, gun control laws do nothing to prevent intentional deaths, not accidents. And accidents, firearms-related accidents are already low anyway, but intentional deaths. And when you hear anti-gun statistics, remember, if they're telling you, oh, this many deaths by handgun, what they don't tell you is when they come up with those statistics that they lump in justifiable shootings, not just by citizens, but by police. They'll lump in, that's right, the Brady campaign type people. They'll take all the police-related shootings where police justifiably shot bad people with their handguns, and they call those handgun-related deaths. So what were the cops supposed to do? Not shoot the felons that were trying to kill them? Hand them some flowers and a freaking, I don't know. And they also lump in suicides. Now, yes, suicide is a tragic thing, but we don't strip everyone's rights because someone kills themselves. We don't say, well, no one's allowed to have this because, quite frankly, folks, let's face it. On planet Earth here, people were killing other people. People were committing suicide long before the invention of the firearm. Suicide and murder did not start the day after the firearm was invented. They were going on a long time before that, and if we ban every gun on planet Earth, they will still continue. The only reason that people will use those studies is so that you won't think about it, or you'll just, nod your head and sigh and say, well, okay. But now, don't forget, you can go to Student of the Gun Radio, all those words put together, .com, and all of the show notes and all of the links back to all these stories will be there. So if you want to share these with your buddies and your friends or what have you, just go to studentofthegunradio.com, and all the links to all the stories that we referenced during this week will be up there, and you can share those.
You know what else we have on there?
What else do we have on there?
We've got some pretty sweet deals on gear.
We got some pretty sweet gear deals, too. So now that's going to wrap it up for segment number 1 of Student of the Gun Radio for this week. But we will be right back in just a moment, however long it takes you to load the part 2 of this segment. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Patriot Arsenal. That's going to be guns that every American should not only own, but know how to use. So stick with us. We'll be right back.